Hey, good morning to those of you on the West Coast and way out there in Hawaii joining us every day. I appreciate it. And good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast like me. Thanks for joining us today for social selling in the government contracting space, right? For government contractors in the federal market. I'm excited to get started on today's topic. Just want to give you a couple of quick updates as we go forward on things I think you'd value. One thing is we're getting ready to drop, and I'm curious, let me know in the chat, I'm curious on whether you would find value in this, is that as we continue to grow the small business specialist directory that we put out, we just put that out yesterday. So if you haven't got it, go get your copy. It has over 1,000 names, numbers, and emails of small business specialists. But as we continue to grow that and get updates, it really is becoming this huge document. And so we're separating out the small business liaison officers at large primes, and we're thinking about putting them in their own directory. Would you value that? Would you value having a directory of small business liaison officers, these small business specialists that serve large primes? If you will, just put SBLO into the chat. Let me know you want that directory. And if you do, we'll put that effort together. It's a great resource for us when we're reaching out and developing relationships with teaming partners at the large level. But we just want to find out whether that's something you'd value as well. So if you value a directory from the GovCon Chamber of small business liaison officers at large primes, put SBLO into the chat. And that'll be pretty good for us to be able to understand whether you want it. Okay, so let's get started. I got my stuff. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonough. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I am excited to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live federal sales training, where I teach success tips in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow the process from A to Z, we are going to achieve the success that we expect and we want. I know that's what you want. It's what drives us to come back every single day. Before we get started, do me a favor, help buyers, help me, and help the others in the community remember who you are. Put your company name and 2 or 3 words into the chat that tell us your core competency. Also, today is social selling training, right? We're talking about social selling in the government contracting space. Let people know if you're open to connections. That's important. I assume anybody who's coming to my events, you're open to a connection. I'm going to reach out. But let us know who you are and let us know if you're open to connections. The last thing is, as we go forward in today's training, engage with each other in the chat. The chat is where you're building a community. Today's event, we have 75 or 100 people registered to attend. And by the way, those are spectacular numbers considering the fact that we just invited most of you last night, right? So less than 24-hour invitation, and we get 75 or 100 people coming in to the community. These are your peers in government contracting. And I want you to be able to meet each other and have whole relationships separate from what you have with the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm just seeing my lighting. I can't tell if the lighting's not attractive or it's me, but I can't do anything about me, but the lighting I can fix. Okay, and last thing, by the way, is as I go forward, I'm going to ask you things. Just let me know that what I'm teaching you, what I'm sharing with you today is ringing true for you, making sense. I'm going to ask you to put things in the chat. Please go ahead and do that as well. Okay, let's dive into today's meat. It's going to be a fire hose. If you haven't been here with me before, I like taking a lot of information and trying to shove it into a limited amount of time so that you can get the most out of your 30 minutes with me. And in here, I have tactical tips generally. Today's a lot more information, but also tactical steps for you to take coming out of every single one of these trainings. So look for those as you drink from the fire hose that is our training session. Okay, so we're going to talk about in this lesson social selling for government contractors. Social selling for some of you might be a norm, right? I've been doing it for 20 years. And you go, 20 years. Well, the internet's been around longer than 20 years. And so we can get back to that later. But social selling is a new way of going into selling and reaching your customers. And when I say new, I mean, in the last couple of decades compared to the last couple hundred years. And I'll dive into what is social selling more particular in a second. But what I want you to understand from a social selling standpoint of who you're reaching, whether it's teaming partners or buyers, I tend to focus more on reaching the buyers at the moment. But by 2025, 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials or the younger generations. these millennials and the other generations, and I may or may not be in there, these generations have all grew up with social media, right? And when they grow up with social media and they begin to get their news off of social media and they shape their opinions, well, these people who are shaping personal opinions and personal news information that they're getting are also informing their decisions, informing their requirements, et cetera, from social media when they're at work, when they're a contracting officer or a program office person, and they're trying to do their homework and due diligence. They're doing it on social media. And so most of these people who are going to be in the workforce are going to be people who just their first option is social media. And so you want to pay attention to that. On social media is where buyers are informing themselves, and their influences and their knowledge are being shaped by what they see online. And it's important that you get out there and start shaping the understanding and the direction of your buyers, your teammates, perhaps, of what your company does. And so that's what I'm going to dive into with the idea of what is social selling, right? I just want to make sure we kind of level set a little bit as we go forward with what social selling is. And I wanted to back up for 1 second and just talk about sales in general. Sales, the way I describe it, it falls into two main ways of doing sales, two types of sales. There's transactional sales and there's consultative or solution selling. And basically, transactional sales is I'm on the phone, I make a sale, I get off. I actually was just talking to a customer today who's coming into the GovCon space, and they were saying that they're used to doing the transactional sales. They make a sale, and what I said, well, for us, it's a 1 year cycle basically in the government contracting world to get a sale. But solution selling and consultative selling have been around for a long, long time, and that is really about take an approach with your customers to understand their needs and their wants before you ever bring a product or a service or solution to that need that they have, right? And so consultative selling is about having conversations with them. And in the old days, before we had the ability to influence them with like YouTube, we would go there and we would have conversations and we would go to the customer side over and over again as we're developing the relationship with that customer. A lot of lunches and dinners, that kind of old school way of doing selling. It's morphed over into social selling. The other key thing to keep in mind is transactional sales require no relationships. Consultative or solution selling, they absolutely require relationships, right? And so social selling enables you to be building a lot more relationships, and really sometimes deeper relationships with the people you're selling to. In the old days, we were taught, for those of us who were in the old days, but in the old days, we were taught when we walked into somebody's office to try to look around and see some commonality. Oh, you fish. Oh, you got kids. I got fish and I kid, or something like that. And in the old days, you were doing these superficial almost relationships. I would write down these details. Well, with social media, I begin to engage with my buyers in discussions that happen out. And I'll talk to you about that in a minute, but I engage with them. So I'm not talking about the superficial stuff. I'm not talking about their personal life. Right? I'm not trying to build personal friendships. I'm trying to build business relationships when I'm connecting with a buyer. And so a relationship is definitely needed, and social selling goes to that. One of the advantages of social selling, this idea of taking advantage of all the social tools that are out there, right? Think of social media, think of your website, anything that basically is not in person, ironically, is social selling, right? In person is definitely social. You're socializing with them, but social selling, think more social media, this ability for people to reduce the learning curve and be more effective in meetings when they go to meetings, whether it's you or them. They can research you just as well as you can research them, right? And so, as you move forward, you want to build a bridge between the activity that you're doing on social media, in your social media platforms, and I'll explain that in a second. You want to build this bridge between the content you have out there and the messages you're trying to communicate and the sales meetings you might have. So if I have a meeting coming up in a month, or if I know I want to begin to start reaching out to larges or federal agencies, I'm going to try to create content and begin to build a bridge between all that activity I do out there and this meeting. But I'm also going to try to reverse engineer that. What are they talking about? What are they creating? And how do I bring that back and help me prepare more? By paying attention to that, you're able to reduce the friction and certainly the effort it takes to go in and have successful meetings. One of the advantages of social media is that it enables you to share so much easier information with buyers and teammates, right? With contacts, future buyers, this ability to just keep sharing useful information they would find useful, to be able to put it out there. If you think about passive and active, an active approach is I have to go meet somebody and put it in their hand, basically, for them to get that information. But if I can put it out in ways that are passively being delivered to my buyers or my contacts when they're researching information about, putting in a new elevator into a building, or doing zero trust, or standing up a knowledge-based center, right? Any of these things, if they can research it on their own and see what I write about it, that's passive activity, passive marketing. I want to give you a point of just a quick little example. This week, we released our November 2022 Small Business Directory. And I don't know if you downloaded it, make sure you download it, but it's a free directory of over 1,000 names. And today is Tuesday, I think, right? Sorry. And we released it yesterday on the 14th of November, 2022, in case you're watching the replay. And in a matter of a couple of days, it's really been less than 24 hours or 48 hours. We have gotten thousands of people engaged with it. Many people coming in and downloading it. All I did was let people know about it, and they're finding this valuable resource that can help them in the particular, you with your government contracting sales activities. But they're finding this resource and they're able to come. Well, as I continue to put that information out, I'm reaching thousands and thousands and thousands of people who already are engaging with our content, our training, as well as all sorts of new ones, right? Every single day, we're getting 100 plus subscribers to our YouTube channel. And I don't overly track on YouTube from a subscriber standpoint, but that is clearly telling me that many people are getting their information, the information I'm sharing, through YouTube, right? And we'll come back and talk about this in a minute for your efforts. But you want to do that same thing because, and by the way, it took me a while to get to that stage. It wasn't like, hey, here's Neil, I'm a success. We've been doing this for a while, and we're just now starting to see the momentum come up in certain social media activities. But what's happening is we're able to reach our buyers and contacts in a way that they're looking for information. So I want to give you one last thing about social selling and what is it. I use, and I heard this from somebody else that combines with something I talk about, but I love this idea of this concept of 6 C's. I used to use 4 C's of SharePoint, and here's 6 C's of social selling that keep in mind, right? Social selling helps you prove your credibility. It allows you to build connections with whole new agency environments or connections off of people you already know into existing agency relationships that you have. So allows you to establish credibility, build connections. It allows you to share content like I described. It allows you to begin to have conversations. I was just talking to somebody today about, should I use LinkedIn or should I use email? And I said, well, both. You use both, but depending on what the person you're trying to reach feels most comfortable with. If they're on social media, if they're on LinkedIn, as an example, begin to get on their radar, then begin to engage, then begin to maybe have conversations in the commenting where you're talking about whatever that post is, and then take it offline, right? So this ability to have conversations is enabled through social media tools, social selling tools. And the last 2 C's are conversion, this ability to convert people from leads to customers, right? And that's exactly what we want to do when we're reaching out to our potential customers. And by the way, teammates in my eyes are customers. You should think of them like customers. You want to treat them with that level of appreciation because of what they can do for your company. And you want to make sure you're serving their needs as well. So conversions, last one is consistency, this ability to constantly be putting out content. It doesn't have to be every day like we do. It could be every month, right? Every week is what you should be doing, but it could be every month. And it's still fine if your content is driving people to come to you for the reasons that you want, what your core competency is. So, okay, if you understand what social selling is and what I've been talking about, put social selling into the chat. Let me know you're tracking on this. A lot of stuff in there. Somewhere down the line, I'm going to do a more advanced training if I reach out and I hear you guys tell me you want it. But for now, put social selling in to help me understand that you're tracking it. And while you're doing that, and before I continue, I just wanted to stop and thank our sustaining members, the GovCon Chamber sustaining members. We would not be able to provide everything we provide to you, today's training included. So we want to say thank you to our sustaining members and invite you to join us as a sustaining member today if you're not already one. We provide hundreds of trainings, step-by-step roadmaps, webinars, and network opportunities for you. But the GovCon Chamber of Commerce is not funded by the government, right? And I'm not Jeff Bezos. It's just me, my team, and you, right? And we work together. If you find value in the training, the tools, this community, please become a GovCon Chamber sustaining member today by just visiting www.govconchamber.com. All right, let's move on to step 2 for today's lesson, talking about social media platforms. And I want to go over this one fairly quickly because of time, to make sure I save time at the end of it for a little bit of how. So when you think about social selling, it really comes down to platforms. Yes, in person is social, but social selling is the concept is really, online. And so there's 6 medias that I want to talk to you about. And I just want to let you know where I think you should be playing, where I don't think you need to waste your time. So Facebook, my first one, absolute no. And I'm not here to have a debate with people either. Facebook is for my grandma, right? You're trying to become, well, not my grandma, maybe your grandma, but Facebook is designed for people on a much more personal level. You're trying to be seen as a subject matter expert, right? The government contracting world, government buyers are more conservative. They're not going to go in and truly talk in any level of detail in there. Plus, that's a personal environment, right? That's a place where people post cats or whatever else they want, right? Politics, all these other things. So Facebook, I just say a hard no, because most importantly, your buyers are not there. You might find a couple of people who are just in there, but your buyers through and through are not there. They are somewhere, and I'm going to tell you exactly where they're at. Twitter, hard no for me again. Twitter is something that I actually post on, but the only reason I post on it is because when I post something on LinkedIn, it says, hey, do you want to throw it to Twitter as well? I'm like, sure, throw it over there. But Twitter is not where the discussions are happening for my federal buyers and frankly for the small business world that I'm trying to reach and teach, right? So they're just not on there. Twitter tends to be a whole different dialogue. So I'm not going to get into this debate about it. I'm just saying, as a social media tool, it's not really a helpful tool for government contracting. My next 2, I just combine them because they're both no, but Instagram and TikTok. As cool as TikTok is, it's still got all sorts of risk to it. And you're not going to see your federal buyers flooding to it. If your target audience is not flooding to it, then we're just on TikTok for the sake of TikTok. That could change if TikTok ever changes a year or 2 years from now. But right now, that's a hard no. And Instagram is just because it's like any of these other ones. It's just pictures or whatever. Okay, so let's go into the yeses. I don't want to be all about no. Yeses, right? First yes is your website and a blog, right? This is what I call passive social selling, if you will. If you put stuff on your blog and on your website, it's responding to people doing searches. It's passively constantly marketing for you, social selling for you, but it's not an active activity. I'm going to talk about active in a minute. But your website's vital, right? You should have 5 key pages that talk about your company and the services or products that you offer. If you have that, that's a good enough website, right? Because most people these days really aren't also going to the websites to get all that information they used to. We absorb information in much smaller chunks, and so it's really important for you to pay attention to that. There's these things called shorts. And if you think about a YouTube short, it's a 30-second video. That's what people are starting to like and consume. That's what you might be liking and consuming. So putting a whole bunch of content on your website really it's cool, but it's not really needed. It's not the way your buyer these days are consuming it. But having a blog on your website and keeping that updated with relevant content related to your core competency, your area of expertise, that's awesome, because then it's indexed by Google, it's found, people begin to reference it. That's constant content that is relevant to today, compared to your website tends to be very static, right? You're not traditionally updating a website that often, once a year, if that, right? But your blog, you're posting every week, let's say. That's a good post. The next one is YouTube, and this is a hard yes. Whether you're there yet or not, doesn't matter. You can get there, but when you're able to put yourself in that position, get on YouTube. If you create a YouTube channel and you start sharing content that is relevant to your area of expertise, you will start being found. You won't be found for 6 months. Let's just call it what it is, right? But if you consistently are posting content, you will begin to get found. And once you begin to get found, YouTube will begin to understand you're the expert at elevators, right? Or at zero trust. You want to speak to your core competency. I don't speak about the FAR. I don't speak about pricing. I don't speak about proposal writing. I could, right? I've run my own business. I know about these things. But what I'm an expert at and what I constantly keep trying to come back and keep my niche on in the GovCon Chamber is we're about sales. We want to really make sure we're teaching you how to achieve success through process. And so we focus ourselves. If you do that same focus, you can achieve visibility, strong visibility within the YouTube world, right? And don't overly think about YouTube, right? It doesn't have to be doing what I do, where I talk face to face to the camera every day. You could do PowerPoint slides, right? As long as you're sharing the information, that's fine. So figure that out. There's all sorts of training on how to do YouTube activity on there. But when you're on there, the reason it's so awesome is YouTube and Google, right? They make up together. They make up the #1 search engine. When people are looking for things, how do I do this? They go to YouTube. How do you look for a plumber? How do you look for how to pull a nail out of your tire or how to do this or that? You go to Google, you go to YouTube, that kind of approach. Well, your buyers are doing the same thing. They're just people like you. They mow the lawn on the weekends and they come to work and they try to find you, right? So be found in the same way that you find your vendors, the people who come support you. Okay, the last one and my #1 favorite one for social media is LinkedIn. Website and your blog and YouTube, those are passive social selling tools, passive marketing. LinkedIn is kind of both a little bit of a passive one and absolutely an active social selling tool. This is the one where you can get in. And so it's a hard yes on here. And it's also what I consider the best social selling tool for active. YouTube is actually the best social selling tool, in my opinion, for passive marketing. Because LinkedIn, you put stuff on there, it begins to get buried. YouTube, it really never gets buried. They're good at getting people to, hey, check out the next thing, check out the next thing. But on LinkedIn, this platform, you're on it right now, right? Except for those of you who might be watching on YouTube and some other places that I have this. But primarily, we're all here on LinkedIn. This is the tool where your federal buyers live. And that leads me to the third thing I want to talk about, which is how to be a social seller. But do me a favor, if you understand the platforms, and if you agree or you see what I'm saying and my rationale behind the two best being YouTube and LinkedIn, then do me a favor in chat, just put LinkedIn and YouTube. LinkedIn and YouTube. Put those into the chat. Let me know that you're kind of staying away from Instagram, right? And you're focusing on the place where your buyers are. Federal buyers are on LinkedIn. I have conversations constantly with SES level people in LinkedIn, right? Not just that they're out there and I can find their name or something. I actually see them and can engage with them in the comments or reach out to them and connect or even have messaging on private messaging. I do this on a regular basis. So do the people I work with, right? So you can as well. And that's why I think it's really important that you get on there. So let's talk about how do you become a social seller? And let's call this a starter guide for how to become a social seller. And I think I'll do a whole training on social selling later. But right now, the first thing I would tell you is you want to be findable and attractive, right? And attractive I throw on there, meaning if you're a zero trust cybersecurity type company, then you want to look like that. When people come to your social media platforms, when they come to your content, they should be seeing that. That's what I mean by attractive, right? Not a fancy shirt or something. You want to be attractive to the audience you're trying to target. And so a construction company looking for an elevator operator is not going to find a cybersecurity company attractive because that's not what they need. They'll find the companies that do elevator stuff. So you want to make sure you look attractive to the buyer when they're searching. If somebody searches on plumbing, they want to find plumbers. Makes sense? So you want to be findable though, findable and attractive. Findable is the key part though. In social media, and your website's included in this, right? In social media, if somebody searches for the top 3 keywords that are around what you sell, then you want to be found. First, you want to be on a list. Then you want to go to the top of the list, right? I asked you early on, and if you haven't done this, do this now. What are your top 3 keywords, top 3 words that describe your core competency? When you know those, you'll be able to improve your findability from the buyer. Okay, second thing is be engaged. So how to be a social seller? Be findable, be engaged. Be engaged means getting out there and finding the buyers, the teammates that you want to connect with. And so first, just getting on the radar. If you're familiar with LinkedIn, in LinkedIn, if you view somebody's profile, they have the ability to see that you visited the profile. You're on their radar. If you click on the button to follow them, they will get a message that says, hey, Neil McDonald just followed you, right? You can click on the like button when you see content of theirs. And they're gonna see a notice that says, hey, Neil just liked your content, right? That kind of stuff is engaged. When you begin to increase your engagement, you want to come out of the radar environment and maybe just start having dialogue. And this, to me, is where you start getting into commenting. So the beginning part of engagement is following them and giving them thumbs up on content that you like, right? Not on everything they do, just on the content that's related to what you do and it's relevant, right? But then you want to sit there and engage in the comments. So maybe you add a relevant comment to something they posted. You want to sit there and continue the conversation. In social selling, it's about having the conversation continue online. We're all on there. We don't have to go to some event to engage and have conversations with. And so if somebody puts out a document, like recently I can't remember who put it out, Department of Navy, I think they just found, it's a long story, but they just found an NGA document that is about their IT strategy, and they shared it. And people started having conversations around it. Well, if you're in IT and you get in there, you can say, first, thanks for sharing it. And, hey, John, thanks for putting this out. This is really interesting content, right? Maybe in the beginning, you're just saying this is interesting. Pretty soon, you're starting to ask questions in your commenting that drive the discussion, maybe to get the person who posted the content to engage with you, to say, oh, Neil, yeah, no, we really enjoyed putting this together. I'm glad you found value in it. Perfect. The more you engage, the more you can take that engagement out of the public view of commenting into the direct messaging, the email of LinkedIn, right? So this is all engagement. So you want to be findable, you want to be engaged. And the last one is you want to be informing. And this is about content. If you're a subject matter expert, don't hide that. Shout it from the rooftops, right? Let people know. Put content out. I have a whole training video about how you can create content and how you can get started where it's not going to kill you and it's not too much effort. You can also borrow content. If I work with Amazon, I can borrow something they created, put it into my social media feed and say, hey, look what Amazon did, right? And then I put my opinion on it, but I'm still giving Amazon credit. But now all the people who read it on my social media platforms are going to thank me for bringing it to them, right? This is borrowed credibility. I'm borrowing the credibility of Amazon and I'm kind of getting credit for it, right? So I'm informing. As you move forward in social media selling, you can start creating your own content. Think about mini white papers, et cetera. Go look at a post I did today. It's the simplest thing. It took me 5 minutes. It actually got me way more engagement with my target audience than stuff I've spent hours on, right? It doesn't have to be a lot of extra effort. It just has to be a determined process if you want to be a social seller. So if you understand where I'm talking about this, just be findable, be engaged, be informing, put in the chat, just be. Just be. I'd love to see that in there. Just be. Okay, in this training, we discussed social selling. Remember, as you move forward, proactively being a social media seller in the federal market, I want you to remember to just be findable, be engaged, and be informative. Be findable, be engaged, be informative. If you do this, you are a social seller. If you found value in today's training, do me a favor, give Gus and me a thanks in the chat. Gus Phelps, he's in the chat helping out wherever we're at. We're a team trying to bring this information to you. So throw a thanks into the chat. We'd appreciate that. And remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.